also in period products now, right?
Yeah, since a little more than a year now.
Yes.
March 2019, the period products came.
Yeah.
Which is not that much my focus, but I can talk about that as well if you.
No, I was just curious because I've seen it.
Yeah. Well, we have them. Yeah. Shall we start?
Yes, I think maybe we should start. I can maybe just give a little intro, and we can see how it goes with the discussion, because now we're not so many people. Because how we did it the last few times is just that we had like the talk, obviously, and then we had like a Q&A discussion at the end, and just to, because it's a little bit difficult to see who's going to speak next, so how we did it is that if anyone has a question also during the talk, you can just type that in the chat, and then after the talk, I can just pick up on the questions, and then whoever asked the question can then unmute themselves, and you can have like a little back and forth to answer it maybe. This is at least how we've done it, and it worked quite well, but we can see how it goes. So that's that. And then otherwise, welcome everyone. We're Sustainability Discourse Berlin, and we're just a group of people passionate about sustainability, and we host different events about lots of different topics around sustainability. And this month's focus is on corporate social responsibility. So last week we heard about social entrepreneurship, and this week we're focusing on corporate social responsibility, and we invited Linda from Einhorn, who's going to tell us more about the fairstainability approach of Einhorn. And I'm really excited to hear about it. And any questions, just type them in the chat.
Well, thank you for having me. I will share my screen to give you to show you my presentation. Maybe before I do this, I quickly introduce myself, because now you see me and then you see my screen. So I'm Linda. I've been working with Einhorn for the last 4 years, and I'm head of rubber projects. So I'm mainly focusing in the fairstainability team on our rubber value chain. And with this rubber value chain, I explain you a little more about our approach, because this is the topic I can talk most about. But should you have any questions about anything else, of either Einhorn, the company, the products, whatever, you can basically ask me anything and I will try to answer as much as I can. But now I share my screen, or I share my presentation. Well, this is not the first page. This is the first page. Can you see it? Nora, can you not? Okay, right, cool. And now I have to start the presentation. Is it starting? Can you see like the presentation itself, or? Okay. Okay, so this is Einhorn. I don't know how many of you, and it's really strange to not be able to see you nodding or not nodding, whatever, but this is, so Einhorn was founded in 2015 as a condom company. And the idea basically behind it was that from the two founders, only 2 fingers, not 4 fingers from the 2 founders, one had the idea and said, well, condoms are packed always in this squared, ugly packages, and you don't feel like that it's something you want to use, but it's something you have to use. Why can't we make this more attractive to people who want to use condoms? And the other was traveling in South America and watched lots of monoculture plantations of different crops, and said, hey, this can't be possible that agriculture is working this way and that we're destroying our planet. So the next company I want to found should be something which gives something back and doesn't only take from the planet. So they matched and they said, why don't we do sustainable condoms? And then Einhorn was founded, but then they said, well, only if people buy in this idea and believe in it, we go ahead. So there was a crowdfunding campaign which was successful, and then in 2015 the first condoms reached Berlin and were sold in those crisp bags. And by now we are 22 employees and have also period products, which you see on this slide. and have a revenue of roughly 5.8 million euros last year. So you have an idea of where we are standing now. But I'm not going to talk more about our facts and figures, in which you can read somewhere probably online, but more about our sustainability approach. So in sustainability, it's always work in progress. We say just because there are different steps we can take, we will never be at the end, but we're walking a never-ending process. And with this, we want to minimize the negative impact we have in all the business operations we are having, like reducing the CO2 emissions, reducing the garbage we are producing, trying to keep our negative impact as small as possible, but at the same time using business as a force for good to maximize our positive impact we can create. So to have an impact on paying fair wages in our value chain, on seeing how we can improve working conditions, and how we can also maybe have an impact in politics to influence with showing that things can be done differently. But I'm focusing on condoms and how we used our sustainability approach there. You can see they are packed in crisp bags. And when you open them, they make a nice pop, which I would usually do when I would present in front of you and not in front of a computer. And so there's lots to tell about the packaging itself, but I will first start about the condoms, which are made from natural rubber. And this is our value chain. So before, you can see on the very right, the condoms reach you in Berlin. They have traveled quite a way from Southeast Asia, because around 90% of worldwide grown rubber grows in Southeast Asia, and it grows on like 14 million hectares of land, usually in monocultures. And 70% of the rubber ends in the tire industry. So when you buy a car, you usually have tires made from rubber, made from natural rubber. And the sustainability approaches in this industry aren't known to be the most forward-directed approaches. So when we started with condoms, we said, well, we want to have sustainable rubber in our condoms. How do we get sustainable rubber in our condoms? Can't we just buy it on the world market and then integrate it and then it's done? And then we realized that it wasn't that easy. If we really want sustainable rubber, we have to do it ourselves or go and look deeply. So the first thing we did was to get transparency in our value chain and to understand, and not just to have transparency, but to also create relationships with our suppliers. And so the condoms are produced in Malaysia, and the rubber is since this year coming from Thailand. I will get there. So we started asking thousands of questions, starting at the rubber plantation. Why are you growing rubber the way you're growing it? Why are you using herbicides? Why aren't there any other crops intercropped on these plantations? To understand why things are done the conventional way, and why, because we said only if we understand things, and if we understand things on the ground, we have maybe the possibility to create change there, and not just with us being here in Germany and pointing fingers at, you're doing bad there, you're deforesting there, and you're using herbicides there, but more to understand the local circumstances, why things are done the way they're done. And one example, what we found out was on this plantation where this picture was taken 4 years ago, the plantation owner was using a book from which he was getting the best management practices on the plantation, and he was going through it, and we were wondering, okay, is this how you're running your plantation? And he said yes. And then we looked at the very back side, and it was written sponsored by Monsanto. And then we weren't asking anymore why they're using this much of herbicides, because obviously it was maybe a conflict of interest in how it is managed. So one very important aspect of sustainability is to ask thousands of questions and to understand what's going on, to be able to change something. And we asked even more questions because we did, I don't know if you can press this link right now because it's my screen, but I can share the slide later with you and then you can press it. We did a life cycle assessment of our condoms. And it's published in a journal to see what from the very beginning of the value chain, so from the rubber plantation until our office, until even the usage, we looked what all goes into the production of the condoms and what all comes out, and how many CO2 emissions. It's around 34 CO2 equivalents per condoms are produced, but all this research hasn't been done before, so we invest lots of time and money in research to have scientific proof of what we're doing and what we want to change, and we spend lots of time in a value chain to understand what's going on. And for another understanding we got is that they are not growing anything different than rubber because they were afraid of snakes passing through when they go and tap a tree, because this is done at night very early in the morning when it's still dark. And there are snakes hiding in the tropics. So people were afraid, or the workers, they were afraid that they would bite them in the foot. And one other important aspect is not just the transparency within our value chain and within our stakeholders. We don't have shareholders, sorry, with our stakeholders, but also the transparency towards our customers and towards the people we could share our knowledge with, because we don't want to sit on our knowledge and be proud that we have had some insights, but we say, well, the more people who can learn about our insights, the better it is to have a more positive impact. So and this also includes talking about the negative things which occur, and not just always, because fairstainability isn't always a success story. Like one time I went back I'm in Malaysia maybe like 2 months a year, in Malaysia and Thailand. And once I went back and I saw a boy working on our partner plantation who was maybe 14 years old. And then I asked I asked the son, hey, why are you working here? And he said, he refused to talk to me. And then I asked his father, and his father told me, well, he's just too bored to go to school. He doesn't want to be in school anymore. And before he sits on the couch at home, I would rather take him along helping me working. And then I spoke to the plantation owner and asked and I thought, shit, man, this is child labor, and we don't want to have child labor in our value chain. But and the usual conclusion in supply chains would be, okay, this supplier doesn't fulfill the code of conduct, we kick him out, we supply from somebody else. And then I was wondering, well, this can't be the case, because yes, then we will have child labor-free supply chains, but the child would still continue working there. And this is something we wouldn't want. So I spoke to the father and the son, and finally the son spoke to me and the plantation owner. And we said, and we found a compromise and said, well, you can work there during your weekends and earn some pocket money, but during the week we enroll you in a school dropout course where you can learn another skill, which is not reading, writing, and maths, but and now he's enrolled to become how's that called in English? Mechanics for cars, which he started with 15, and he's not in school anymore, but he's also not working anymore, and he's learning something and getting ahead in his education. And this plantation has been continued to be in our value chain. Now it's not anymore because it has been sold and it's not growing rubber anymore, but not because we kicked them out of our value chain, but because the plantation owner had different goals with his piece of land. So another aspect of sustainability is to find solutions for the problems and not to push the problems to somebody else. There's text missing. So what we achieved in our partner plantation in Malaysia was, with creating transparency and trust with the people involved there, we could change things. We had training courses, which is the picture or the comic in the middle. We implemented a premium for the rubber tappers. We managed to reduce to zero the agrochemical usage, so that there were no herbicides used anymore, but we employed a person who would cut the grass, because we understood that people were afraid of the snakes, so the grass needs to be cut, but maybe not with chemicals, but with manual labor. And so we went ahead step by step over there. And while we were doing this, we realized, well, this plantation is old and it will soon be no more, and we might need to look for alternatives, which we started doing in Thailand. So now the rubber comes from Thailand, from these farmers who are growing rubber in agroforestry systems, because we said monoculture is like, you all know the palm oil problematic in Indonesia, and mainly Indonesia, and it's similar to rubber, but nobody talks about it. Or slowly people start talking about it, but as it's the tire industry and maybe not the most known for talking about sustainability, it hasn't been on the picture yet. And we said, for growing rubber, many forests are deforested, and they're growing in land which is usually full of huge biodiversity. So on 1 square meter, you have in the tropics more different flora and fauna than in these areas. So we were wondering, how could we maybe incentivize farmers, or how could we find farmers who are growing rubber in a more biodiverse system? And then we found this group. It wasn't a group yet, it was single farmers, and we joined them into a group and tried to integrate them into our value chain, and are now working with them on a agroforestry rubber standard to see that the way they are growing rubber, really cool, really sustainable, becomes replicable to others, and thus creating a bigger impact of sustainable rubber cultivation worldwide. So yeah, there are some videos on YouTube you can actually check out where we are explaining a little more about this project. Einhorn Berlin is our channel. Yeah, so this is about rubber. And then just a very brief insight into our packaging, because we say we always, like, one aspect of not just fairstainability, but of Einhorn in overall, is that just because there have been solutions, it doesn't mean that these solutions are one size fits all, like for us as well. So you've never seen condoms in crisp bags before, because there weren't crisp bags for non-beverage products, and we said, well, we still do this. And then when we started, this bag was made of a mixture of paper and plastic, and we said we want to remove the plastic from this packaging so that it can be recyclable. So my colleague Mike was for 1 year involved in research about sustainable packaging alternatives to still have all the design and optic elements of this crisp bag, but without having plastic involved. And we spent lots of money and lots of meters of test material to get now a plastic-free paper bag package. And the next step is working on the primary packaging, which will maybe by end of this year become aluminium-free, which is again a different topic because it's a medical product and it has fulfilled different criteria. But we are working on like changing the standard of the normal way of doing things. And you can read many of what else we have done or more detail in our reinvestment report, because I missed saying this at the beginning, 50% of our profits are reinvested in fairstainability measures. And one of them is compensations. So we are compensating our CO2 emissions and our plastic footprint we are leaving. And another part is spent on the specific projects we are running in our value chain, which is also part of the reinvestment report, which is online. And I don't need to show you now because you can read it yourself. But this is another thing we have, for example, started on the top right, you can see the plastic offset. We started this 2 years ago with 17 Cs. It's a Singapore-based NGO, which has started beach cleanups, but they were never connected to companies. And because one of my colleagues was in Malaysia and was doing a beach cleanup with them, we said, hey, can't we do this? Can't we support them with Einhorn? And then we said, okay, for this, we might just calculate the amount of plastic we bring into circulation because we are producing products which have plastic content, but we want to take the plastic out of the environment. So we are supporting them because they're doing beach cleanups to pick up, or we pay for them picking up the amount of tons of putting into circulation, so they take it out at the beaches in Malaysia and Singapore. Yes, I could continue talking about period products, but I might not do this now. If maybe we would raise the floor for questions, and if you want, I can go more deep into cotton and this. And if not, I will stop here now, and you can ask questions, and I can use this charts later if needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, because I am personally a fan of the product, but I didn't know as much before, so that's really interesting. Yeah, especially actually also like these details about, I never thought about a rubber plantation before.
I hadn't before I started working for Einhorn.
Interesting. I was going to ask actually, what is your background? Just because I was curious.
Yeah, I studied Southeast Asian studies and economics, and then I was looking for a job which would bring me to Southeast Asia, and that's how it happened. So I speak Bahasa Indonesia, which is similar to Bahasa Melayu. So I could interact with the farmers, which was like the criteria why I got my job.
Okay, thank you. Right, then on to everyone else. Are there any questions? Let's have a quick look. Yes, there's one in the chat from Sammy B. What would you have done if the son wanted to work and was earning needed income for the family?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, it's also a legal problem in Malaysia that you cannot, child labor is prohibited also in Malaysia, and probably the plantation owner, after I spoke to them, has also said, well, this cannot be, and we have to find a solution. But I knew before I rose this topic to the people that the employees or the workers on the plantation, they all have a full contract. They are not day laborers. I don't know the term in English, but they're not day laborers. But they have like social benefits. They have a pension fund. They have health insurance. So they are properly employed. So is the father of the son. And we said it would be unfair to make him work without earning as a proper worker. And we asked his father also, can we contribute? Do you need money? And he's, of course, yeah. Maybe he wouldn't have been honest with us, sure, but we knew that the money he's earning is enough. Like the money the father is earning is above minimum wage in Malaysia, plus the premium paid by Einhorn. So we weren't faced with this problem, so we didn't have to think about it. What would you have done?
Sammy B, does that answer your question? Yes, okay. All right. Yeah, I also don't know what I would have done, but it's really interesting.
Sorry, guys, I can speak a little bit if you can hear me. I'm just not in the quietest space. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely answered my question. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's just part of, I thought it was an interesting example, and I just wanted to know because it's nice to think of it from all the different angles.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the only way to figure that out is to talk to the family. So it was cool to hear that was the process that Einhorn went through. And I was just wondering if that ever came up. So yeah, thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, then moving on to the next question. Will was asking, what was your experience of trying to convince the local farmers to change their practices for the rubber plantations?
Okay, maybe I didn't highlight this properly. So the farmers had, yeah, okay, so there are two parts, there are two different groups of farmers. There's the Malaysian farmers who are not farmers themselves, but they are employees at a plantation. So I had to convince the plantation owner to change stuff. And the things in Thailand is that the farmers themselves are like ecologically friendly, very green-minded farmers. So I didn't need to change I didn't change anything at all, but I didn't need to convince them of anything because they were doing it really fantastically from a sustainability point of view already. But the point was to organize them and to integrate their latex into our condoms. So this maybe is out of your questions. And the Malaysian part was to that I spoke to the plantation owner and we said, let's make trial and error and see if we leave out glyphosate on this part of a plantation for 6 months, what would happen? Will there be a tremendous amount of snakes coming, or will there be bushes growing all over that you won't get hold of them anymore, or what will happen? Are you willing to run a trial? And should there be any cut in latex output or in any of this, we would cover it. But are you willing for this? And he said, yeah, well, a trial is interesting. I am also curious to see what is going to happen. And this trial was successful. So for this, we could continue.
Does that answer your question well?
Yeah, thanks very much. That's great.
Great. Then let's move on to the next question. Wow, we've got quite a lot going. So the next question is from Teresa. How do you know what workers earn? How do you calculate workers' wages? Are you engaged in work towards living wage for all workers along the supply chain?
So with the latex, with the condom manufacturer, I just go there and I talk to the employees and I talk to all the different, like they are full transparent towards us. It's not like, oh, Linda's coming, don't tell her anything, but it's more like that I go and have lunch with them and eat with them, and I just talk to them, and I know that the employer, so the company is a very cool socially fair company. So there I can even look in their books and they tell me, here are our payrolls, go and have a look, and I know that they are paid above average of that area, and which is more difficult on the plantation levels. But luckily in Malaysia with our partner plantation, which is no more, we also got, the plantation owner also gave us insight into his payment schemes. And from there we realized, okay, this can't really be enough. And I mean, not every country has a living wage calculation, so it was just to understand an average. But I was like my first time in Malaysia, I was there 3 months, basically living with the workers on the plantation to understand their day-to-day situations and their needs, and understand their perspective of fair wage, which is something so incredibly difficult, but which helped us to say, well, if we put a premium on the amount of latex they're tapping to this and this amount, it would still be like, it would still make a difference for them, but it will not be that they will, because this was the fear of the plantation owner. He said, well, if you pay them 100% more, they will work 100% less, because they're getting, for much less input, they're getting much more output. So it was a balance of also of the different interests of the people involved there. And in Thailand now, it is that we had a workshop with the farmers together and asked them, what are all your expenses? And they are, the rubber farmers, they are smallholders, so they own their own piece of land. So there are 30 farmers joining together, so they're all self-employed. And it's not a wage, but it's they're selling the latex, and they're getting the prices paid for it. And this price is based on the world market prices of traded rubber. But then we asked them, what are your expenses you have on a plantation? Why, like, what are expenses to intercrop, to have more species than one there? What is your are you paying workers there? So to understand the expenses, and to understand also, because most of them have rubber farming as a side business and are running other projects or sources of income. And together with them, we calculated a premium they're getting per kg they're selling towards in our value chain.
Interesting. Do you have anything else to add, Teresa, or any follow-up questions?
Thank you very much for the very comprehensive reply. I know, like, living wages are really difficult, and also expenses are very different. Like, I don't know about school tuition needed for children, for instance.
Yeah.
So I worked in Faire Handel, which is not fair trade, the company, but in English you simply say fair trade, and it's also based on direct trade and working with cooperatives. So I'm interested in this question because during a time I worked with German fair trade importers, which has been like 5-6 years ago, they just realized that sometimes, even though they try, they don't pay the best possible wage, because it's so difficult if you work with small farmers and cooperatives to actually know how much they would need, calculating medical expenses and also factoring in the fact that many of them also have like a number of side jobs, which may be also more sustainable than just putting all your eggs in one basket. So from a business perspective, I'm also wondering, how can you be sure that you get all the rubber you need when they also have different side jobs? And also, how volatile is the world market for rubber? Because you said that the money the small farmers make actually depends on the world market. So for coffee and cocoa, it's really, or chocolate, it's really volatile. So it's actually bad.
Rubber as well. And now look at Corona and how the car manufacturers are crushing. So it's like the rubber farmers haven't been tapping for a long time because they don't have any demand. So it's very volatile. And it's also connected to the crude oil prices, because the substitute of natural rubber is synthetic rubber, which is made from crude oil. And so if this price is fluctuating, the rubber price fluctuates as well. So it's not just A and B happens, but it's like A, B, and C happens, and then something else happens. So it's, yeah, difficult.
Okay. And are you worried that you will not have business relationships next year because your farmers will simply drop out of offering in the market? Or
No.
is this like constant?
It's because we have grown a really good relationship with them, and even if because a rubber tree stays for 30 years or something, and you need to tap it a long time before you get your return on investment. So just because you have 1 year or 2 years which are not profitable, you will not immediately cut down your trees because you have done lots of investment up front. So they will, and they have crop diversification. They have bees, they are and producing honey, they have different fruits in their piece of land. So although they might not survive on their rubber trees right now, they still have sources of income from their piece of land.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Moving on to the next question, I'm actually thinking maybe I will just ask the person who asked the question to unmute themselves and ask the question themselves. I thought maybe that would be a bit more personal than me reading all of the questions. So the next person would be Evita. I hope I say the names right. Would you like to read out your own question?
Hi.
Hello.
I hope you can hear me. So my question was actually fantastic projects, fantastic results. What interests me, of course, is the financial part of this. How could you finance your research? Because this takes a long time, and me knowing how it takes publishing scientific journals takes years. So the question is, how could you afford this huge investment into the research to get these fantastic results? Did you collaborate with research organizations, I don't know, institutes, universities? Did you apply for projects to get, some income or somebody who supports your research projects?
Yeah, we did. So we had this life cycle assessment was actually a master thesis by Mike, who became my colleague after completing his master's, and he it was a master thesis, and he published it much later, but because then it had to go through many different review projects, and for us it wasn't. I mean, it was still a scientific thesis he completed. It was just not third-party verified that this is something he could publish at that point of view, but he did by now. So that was a student job basically, which was payable for us. But at the same time, we applied for different funds. For different research funds. So his research project was also partly funded, and then my time in Malaysia there's called in Germany with the BMZ Ministry for Economic Development, and and they have also funding possibilities to. So my internship at Einhorn, which I did at the beginning because Einhorn couldn't pay me a full-time job, but I was an intern there, and this was paid by the ministry because they had a scholarship program. So at the beginning, this was like trying to get funds from different sources to start.
Mm. So it actually takes a lot of pre-work and pre-investment, and be ready not to get salary immediately, right?
Yeah, at the very beginning, the salary was not much yet. Yeah, and now it's still not much because we have like a very fair and very equal wage system, which will not make us rich people, or maybe rich, but maybe not rich on the bank. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also interesting, interesting insight into the finances. Just before we move into the next question, I just wanted to point out that I think we have like a survey, which will take 30 seconds if anyone feels like taking it. I think it's about discourse in general, just some feedback for the event, for future events. And yes, otherwise, the next question is from Malte. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure, thank you. I have to switch over to the chat to read it again. So thanks, Linda, for sharing this great story about your journey. And if I understood you in the right way, you've said something like you made a life cycle assessment to know what to do for more sustainability. So kind of having an overview of, however, I assume this might have opened up a complex field of possible actions then. And I was thinking of trying to imagine how your team works and how your processes are. So how do you make decisions? How do you move forward? How do you kind of like decide what to do next, or what would be the best next thing to do? And how do you make decisions on how to approach the particular challenges?
Well, if I could tell you how we make decisions, I would be a magician, I think, because we don't have this strict decision processes in our company. It's sometimes a bit chaotic. But when you deriving from the life cycle assessment, we definitely could highlight some hotspots in the value chain and realize, well, for example, water, cleaning of the water at the latex processing is one aspect, or the electricity needed in the condom manufacturing is one aspect, or the biodiversity on the plantations is one aspect. So these are different things we pointed at. It wasn't all in our own responsibilities, but we could at least highlight it. And then obviously the packaging was one major aspect, the amount of rubbish and we produced because it wasn't recyclable. So we said, whatever is in our scope, whatever we can have an influence on, and a direct influence on, we are approaching it. And the other things we could only potentially highlight, and we did, for example, our condom manufacturer is the first ever company in Malaysia running fully on solar panels, which wasn't because, I mean, we just gave them maybe another reason to finally start doing it. But they did it after our life cycle assessment and after we had pointed out to them the calculations we did. And then like what the sustainability, we are 3 to 4 people in our sustainability team, and whatever we do is not only coming from us internally, but also depending on what other colleagues are, in which projects they are involved, and asking us to give our insights and our research skills and our human resource skills to help them. So when the topic started that we wanted to make a new product, and these products should be period products, we had to give the pre-research on under which conditions could we do disposable products and why should we invest in only very reusable period products. So it's a question of where are we needed, but we are in each decision we are part of a project rollout scheme. So you can't start a project without passing the sustainability team.
Okay, well, so if you say, maybe I have one follow-up question. If you said that like reducing the waste, for example, is one of the topics you faced, this sounds like this is kind of, or could be kind of common knowledge that we have a waste problem. So do you think the life cycle assessment, which might be, I don't know, complex and maybe expensive, I don't know, but is it a necessary tool to like move forward on this journey, or can you do it otherwise, kind of step-by-step learning journey, I don't know, and start somewhere?
Yeah, I think there are different approaches to reach more sustainability. Definitely, it doesn't need to be life cycle assessment, but what I got to appreciate in this is that you have a better understanding of the materials you're using, because you have like comparable numbers in what is it if you use paper, or now we have like cotton or viscoses, or we have natural rubber. So you can make decisions based on science, or you can make material decisions based on comparable figures and numbers, which is which makes it also more easily transferred or communicated to say, well, we are doing A because we have calculated that it would mean this much of water use, this much of CO2 emitted, whatever. And for this, it makes it easier for us and for making decisions and for communicating decisions.
Yeah, got you.
So it's, of course, it's common knowledge to reduce your waste, but it's not, but you still have to say, okay, you can use pre-consumer recycled paper or post-consumer recycled paper, and you can use this printing color or that printing color or this printing color, and then you have like different variables which you need to put into a picture, and doing a life cycle assessment or something similar you can compare it with makes it easier.
Yeah, cool. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
A lot of questions still there, but yeah, I don't want to take all the time about this, but very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you also from my side. Are there any other questions from anyone? Otherwise, I might actually have a question, which is a bit of a maybe random one, but I was just curious what your thoughts are on sort of certification, because I'm just wondering sometimes also from a consumer perspective, I think sometimes it can be a bit confusing, and I definitely find that, you know, transparency is amazing, and I think it helps you also make decisions as a consumer. But I find it sometimes confusing because you have this example of like, you know, something that's certified fair trade, but then actually when it comes to coffee, it's often much better to buy single origin, even though maybe it doesn't have the certification. It might end up sort of being fairer. So I was just wondering what your thoughts on this are, because obviously you're a lot more experienced.
Yeah, I don't know if I have more experience because I'm not into certification much. But what I find always problematic certification is that certification does not necessarily increase trust into a product, especially as certification can be misused a lot. And just looking at organic cotton, there is like 4% of certified organic cotton on the world market, but only 3% is grown organically. So 1% is somehow got the wrong turn, but still certified organic. So I think in certification, you have a momentum of this is at that moment when the auditor was there, it is right, or it has been done right. But the moment he is gone, could look completely different. So for me, it doesn't necessarily increase trust into value chains, although there are certificates which are somehow more trustworthy than others because you haven't seen so many, or you haven't heard of anything bad in them yet. But I think I'm very happy to work for a company which feels the responsibility to go beyond certification and to actually look into your value chain. Because just today I heard of another condom manufacturer or condom brand in Germany which has FSC certified rubber, saying it, and then when you look into the certification, it says that it only has chain of custody, but it doesn't have rubber from FSC certified plantations. But the consumer is misled because he's reading FSC certified, but it doesn't mean that the rubber plantation is sustainable there. So I'm very skeptical when it comes to certifications.
Okay, interesting, thank you. But that was also a good insight, because it's true. It's like it can be very misleading, I think, because you wouldn't necessarily know sometimes when you read a label what exactly it means. So thank you. Will says he has a follow-up. Go for it, Will.
Yeah, I think we thank you. And again, yeah, thanks Linda for the talk. Super interesting. It's kind of a similar line. We had this question in the last talk as well about sort of like greenwashing, and sort of like, firstly, how to, as a consumer, how to be aware of greenwashing, but then also as an organization, like how to ensure what you're doing is actually having a positive impact as well. So it's like on both sides, from a consumer point of view, how to, because you said like not many people are going to look deeply into the FSC certification, and you're talking about a chain of custody, and that's already above my knowledge level. So like, yeah, as a consumer, being aware of greenwashing, but also as an organization, how to check you're not greenwashing yourself. Because
Okay.
sometimes
And what is your question?
How to spot greenwashing, I guess.
Okay, how to spot greenwashing. Okay, I think it is very difficult to spot greenwashing. But what is my, I think the more questions and the more questions you ask, I mean, obviously you can't, with all your buying decisions you're doing as a consumer day to day, you wouldn't go into all your products you're consuming to ask questions. This is like impossible with the time you have. But especially in products where you are interested in or where you feel insecure, and this is not just as an end consumer, but also as a in our company where we are thinking of a different supplier right now, and asked him, hey, can you supply us this sustainably? And he said, yes, we can give you this sauce. But then the point is to ask more questions and to find out how much does he actually know about it, how much. So this is my responsibility as a team member of Einhorn, but also as a consumer, you can ask questions. And it's crazy because even I feel sometimes insecure to say, well, I can't ask this question. And then I think, well, why shouldn't I? I should just do it. And then the other person has to feel insecure not being able to answer it. So, I think asking those questions you have. Because, I mean, on a communication homepage or on anywhere I don't know I don't know how to spot greenwashing until you poke your finger into it. Sorry, that's not the most easy way, but this is the only answer I can think of.
That's good, thanks.
Thank you. No, I think it's a really good point, and I think it's also really inspiring. I personally often feel also shy to do this, but I've seen other people do it, and I think it's a good way. Like also when brands don't really disclose information on their website, to just go and ask them, send an email or something. And I guess also the more you have these questions, the more it makes them think about it if they can't answer it. So it's a good point. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to know anything?
Yeah, I have another question.
Yes.
I thought about like maybe more classical companies. What would you tell them? Like, I'll try to make it a question. Like, you are a purpose-driven company. You are successful with it so far. So why do you make progress? You know, like what value do you create, kind of next to idealistic values? And what would you tell other companies that might be more skeptical against moving forward or like do anything regarding sustainability? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I could give them arguments of how they're fucking up our planet and why they should start acting fast. And I could give them several reasons to start. And if they're skeptical, I would try to encourage them to walk the first step and ask questions in their value chain, like, hey, where are you sourcing from? Hey, where are you sourcing from? Hey, where's actually my product coming from? So I think, I mean, there is a huge picture you could open up, but you could also just encourage to walk the first step and then maybe make the person more curious to find out themselves.
Mm. Would you say, like, first of all, it's like the message of put more like values or purpose or idealism into your business and look or face these challenges? Or is there any other argument that you could put in place for classical thinking companies?
Well,
because
I think
from my experience, there's a lot of anxiety of moving one step forward and not making a mistake, for example, or do the right thing. So measurement and little optimizations is more preferred than, like, I don't know, positively move forward. Yeah,
and I mean, I've been to rubber conferences where all those big tire companies and car manufacturers were there, and they usually send their sustainability manager there. So with them, I speak on a common level. They just don't have the strategic power to influence their top levels to do what they would want to do. So I think they do. Big companies are aware that they should do something, but they just don't give the people who would do something the power to do it. So sometimes I'm wondering how do you change the top managers' minds that it is something they should pay attention to? And I think this can be done only with politics putting pressure and putting regulations on it, because this idea of the consumers are not wanting and they're not asking, therefore we don't have to do it, or it's the consumer's decision, they can decide. But I think it's not done with this. I think it has to be regulations, if you think that big.
Or start a new company, which is good from the original. Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I think I just had a look at the time, so I was thinking we're nearing the end. I was just wondering whether you, Linda, have anything you'd like to say at the end? Or
I was
thoughts?
just wondering, I think, Che, were you raising your finger? Didn't you have a question?
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Yes. Excuse me, first of all, my apology that I joined the conversation a bit late, and I just saw your slide. And but from the questionnaire, I could make some sense. And I am just asking, my question is now to get a little summary. And I am telling you something, and if I have understood right. So what I have understood from this, from last 15-20 minutes, is that you have introduced a new method of producing rubber to farmers, and you then grow this rubber, and this rubber you use to make condoms, and which are sold here in European market. Is it right?
We are selling condoms in German-speaking countries, and we haven't introduced a new method. They haven't. The farmers had introduced it themselves, but we have integrated those farmers in our value chain. Correct.
Okay, good. So, and now my question related to this is that, is it possible to give these farmers access direct to sell here their products into European?
No, because latex is like milk, and you can't just say, here's the market, you sell your milk, because there are processing steps in between, and the farmers can't do the processing we need, because we need very high quality latex, because it's a medical product. And it has nothing to do with, I mean, if you do like a shoe, like the downside of your shoe, which is made from rubber, this might be able to be done by the farmers themselves, but latex processing for medical products isn't something you can do with empowering them a little more or giving them a different skill set, but it's a completely different factory needed for this. So with our value, or with what we are doing, or with what we are needing, we can't just give them direct access to the German market, because the processing step in between is something you have a different.
And this processing steps, they also take place in Malaysia?
Excuse me?
So all these processing steps from rubber till the end product, manufacturing process you are talking about, right?
No, I'm talking about the processing of the liquid. So latex is liquid. It's a milk which is tapped from the trees and flowing out of it. Mm-hmm. And this only is allowed to have like 4 hours from tree to factory until it needs to be processed. Otherwise, it's like milk, and the bacteria will increase a lot in there, and then it will turn sour, and you have to waste. You can't use it anymore. So this 4 or 5 hours, or maximum 10 hours, needs to be there to be able to use the latex later for medical devices or medical products. So this can't be done in an international value chain, because this needs to be done locally. Once the latex is processed and stabilized, you can sell it to Europe, and which is done because many tires are produced also or maybe not tires, but many other products like mattresses or something are produced in Germany, and even condoms, other condoms are produced in Germany. So also the liquid is sent here, but only after the first processing step.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you. It was really interesting talking to you and getting your questions, and makes me think about things which have become normal to me again, which is really helpful to not get, in German you would say, rosten, get tired in your mind maybe. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. It was really interesting. I feel like I learned a lot, and I definitely have also some food for thought. And also thank you everyone for participating and for the interesting questions. It was really a pleasure. And just if you happen to have some minutes and want to give us some feedback, please do, just because we're trying to improve these online events and we're quite new to it. Otherwise, thank you very much and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. The survey is in the chat further up. I'll post the link again. Hang on. There we go. Okay, cool. Bye.